Are the Falcons going to zig and take a pass rusher or zag and take a receiver in round one?
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on a classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go now for free in the App Store or Google Play. So if you don't know me, I'm your very humble host, Aaron Freeman, joined by Jarvis Davis. Right, we have Jarvis here on a Wednesday night, Thursday morning, whenever you guys are listening to this, which is a day earlier than usual because, you know, there's a big event on this Thursday night. And of course, I wanted to get Jarvis on here pre-draft because I'm sure I will be talking with him post-draft as a setup for the freak out that he may have Thursday night if the Falcons go in a certain direction. But we'll talk about, you know, what that could possibly be a little bit later on today's episode. Also talk about why I don't think the Falcons are going to draft a quarterback in the first round. That's completely off the table a little bit later in the episode. But I want to say before we jump into the conversation, I want to give a shout out to my everydayers. I know some of you guys have reached out to me that you have felt slighted because, you know, we got the Locked On Falcons Discord, we got the Locked On Falcons Insiders, and the everydayers don't feel appreciated anymore. And guys, I promise you, I appreciate the everydayers every single day that you make this podcast your first listen, your first watch of the day. I love you guys. I appreciate the support that you have given me day in and day out, and I hope to earn your love and respect in the future. So everydayers, love yourself, love me just like I love you. But if you want to become an everydayer and be loved and join the circle of friendship, all you got to do is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So Jarvis, you were at Terry Fontenot's presser yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You were doing your best to try to get him to reveal his secrets over whether or not he was going to take a wide receiver at 8, from what I could tell, listening to presser. But I want to pick your brain on, you know, sort of anything Terry said in that presser. And, you know, are you prepared now to make a prediction on what you think the Falcons will do in round one? And also, you know, potentially, you know, what you think they should do in round one. And, you know, that of course could be sticking and picking, trading down, trading up. You know, you can answer that however you want.
To be honest with you, that was one thing that kind of outside of the whole best player available for us. No, that's like my new hashtag, like best player BPAFU. I love it. You know what I'm saying? Like it just speaks to my soul. You know what I'm saying? Like when it comes to this whole draft thing. So, but outside of that, I really feel like the one thing that really, really stood out to me in all seriousness is how he talked about how they'll read the character, like all the information they gather on a player before they jump into the tape. Because he said a lot of times when you find yourself looking at the tape, you kind of justify all of the character flaws that they may or may not have, and you know, because given their athletic ability and what they're able to do, or when they line up on the field. And I thought that was kind of interesting because, you know, a lot of times from my thinking is like I go look at film. Okay, I like this guy. I like that guy. I might like this guy a little bit more so that plays this position. And then, you know, you start to hear or read about the people that cover that said player and be like, oh, he might, you know, he got into it with his coach, or you may find some information on him. I feel like it's the other way around, but I thought it was kind of interesting for him to kind of, you know, put it in that perspective because he's like, okay, it feels like you're kind of looking at it with a different eye because if you question the character before you even look at the tape, are you like, oh, I'm not gonna fall in love with this guy? You know what I'm saying? I feel like you have like a preconceived notion about that player and not really take it for what it is and what he's doing on the field. So I thought that was kind of interesting to kind of not start off the press conference, but as he was, you know, going through the entire press conference, that's just one thing that just really just kind of made me say,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you know, I think that underlines the point that Terry constantly makes is, they really focus on character and makeup and all
Sure,
those types
yeah.
of things. And obviously it's a priority when it comes to evaluating these players more so than what they do on the film. But that being said, Jarvis, final predictions. What do you think is going to happen Thursday night, round 1 with the Atlanta Falcons?
I'm glad you asked the question that way. What I think is going to happen, I feel like the Falcons are going to end up with a wide receiver. Because here's the thing, man. The more and more I kind of just look at things and look at how you read about, what's going on from 7 through 1, we know what's going to happen at 1, right? And I feel like, with the Tennessee Titans being there at 7, I feel like they're going to go with an offensive lineman and Joe Alt, right? They need left tackle like yesterday. So those other picks feel like maybe 3 more of them could be quarterbacks. So that's going to push down Marvin Harrison Jr. That's going to push down Malik Neighbors. They're going to push down Rome Odunze. So you're telling me one of those 3 guys could potentially be available at 8? I don't see Terry Fontenot passing that up, Jack. Man, I mean, as much as I would probably despise or probably lose or raise my blood pressure or lower my sugar, if that were to happen, I feel like it would be so hard for him to pass that up because, we've been talking about Latu and Dallas Turner and Jared Verse. And I think we all can agree that more than likely those guys aren't necessarily top 10 worthy. That doesn't discredit what they are as pass rushers and what they can do in year 1. I feel like Latu is that guy. Dallas Turner can do some things. Jared Verse, I feel like he's a good player and can be a good contributor to your team. But there's a reason why those guys aren't in a lot of people's top 10 as far as how they stack their board. So I really feel like, man, if one of those 3 guys are sitting right there at 8, barring a trade down, it might be another pass catcher.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's definitely on the table. We'll see what happens. I think in that scenario, Jarvis, I imagine you want the team to trade down. Is that what you think should happen if this scenario plays out the way that you're talking about it?
I think so because, I mean, I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. Just use that for example because I even brought his name up. I invoked his name. That's why I feel like Terry probably was a little perturbed by my questioning. And it's okay. It's totally fine. I ain't trying to be personal, man. I'm just trying to pick your brain a little bit. That's it. But I feel like Marvin Harrison Jr. is for some strange reason is sitting right there. You mean to tell me ain't nobody gonna pick up that phone and call like, "Hey man, what would you like for this pick?" And we want to bring this guy into our fold because I don't feel that Terry would be interested in Marvin Harrison Jr. Because I remember back in the combine when everybody and their mama was going crazy and losing their minds when he didn't show up for the media availability. That might not be a big deal to some people, but you talk about what we just talked about as far as character flaws and questioning certain things about players, their commitment or just being a man of your word or things like that, that matters down here in Atlanta. So I feel like they would be more than willing to trade down if a guy like that is available and they start getting multiple phone calls.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I definitely think, one of those 3 receivers being there at 8, that's the best case scenario for a phone call. I mean, also I guess a quarterback being there at 8, but I don't
Sure.
I don't think we're going to get there, but we'll see. But we'll talk about why quarterback won't be on the table for the Falcons later in the episode. But coming up, I want to talk about the thing that would make me happy, and it's revisiting a conversation I had with Jarvis last time he was on the podcast last week about spending multiple picks in beefing up the front 7, which I know would make Jarvis happy, especially would win him back if they took a wide receiver in the first round. And we'll break that down as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Now, we've all been there, whether as a player or a fan. It's halftime, scoreboard's not looking good, you're feeling low, you're not sure if your team's going to pull out that win, but that's when you dig deep, you lift your head up and you say to yourself, it's time to get back in the game, and I got to pull off some bank heists and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go is going to let you compete with your friends to get the most riches and build the biggest empire. It's the Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with the tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. Make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. Charge other players rent on your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards to climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go for free on the App Store or Google Play. And guys, it is playoff time in the NBA, NHL. Baseball season is in full swing, and FanDuel is the place to go if you want to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, and even, of course, the 2024 NFL draft. Right now, as of this recording, Laiatu Latu and Dallas Turner are even money, plus 250 to be the 8th overall selection. Will Falcons break Jarvis's heart? And maybe Jarvis can head on over to FanDuel and win a little bit of money, and maybe he won't feel as blue if the Falcons take that wide receiver, where I think Roma Dunze is plus 650. So, put down $20. I think that's like $130 that you could wind up winning, Jarvis. Maybe that will make you feel a little bit better about the Falcons taking a wide receiver. So what are you waiting for? Head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. So, Jarvis, we talked about this on Friday's episode where we talked about, the Packers using multiple picks on, their front seven this past year and building on that strength. And I was thinking about this more in the last couple of days, and I was, made note of this to the Locked On Falcons insiders. And if you go back and you look at the 2022 Falcons front, right, their edge rushers, their D-line at the end of the 2022 season, and you look at the Falcons front right now, it's basically the same, right? The main difference is David Onyemata, right? Like the edges then were Lorenzo Carter, Arnold Ebiketie, Ade Ogundeji, and D'Angelo Malone. Now they're Lorenzo Carter, Arnold Ebiketie, James Smith-Williams, and D'Angelo Malone. The D-line then was Grady Jarrett, Taquan Graham, Abdullah Anderson, Timmy Horn, Jalen Dalton, Anthony Rush. Now it's Grady Jarrett, David Onyemata, Taquan Graham, Zach Harrison, Kentavious Street, and LaCale London. I think Onyemata is a huge upgrade. And I think you've upgraded some of the backup, the rotational pieces. Like you had kind of low end backups, borderline practice squad guys before in 2022. And now hopefully, with guys like Harrison and Street and James Smith-Williams, you have at least high end backups that are closer to starting caliber, replacement level starting players. But I sit here being like, yeah, man, like this isn't, I thought we were building something last year with all the additions that we made. And, Campbell and Bud Dupree, maybe they come back after the draft. Maybe the Falcons address it in free agency. But this is why, Jarvis, the thing that would make me happy is not just taking an edge rusher in round one, but it goes back to the conversation we had on Friday, which is like, with 5 picks in the first 4 rounds, I would absolutely love to see this team use at least like 3 of those picks to beef up this front so that we can take this unit from what was, one of the worst pass rushes in the NFL at the end of the 2022 season to something that isn't going back. Like I don't want to go back to that, Jarvis. You understand what I'm saying? So yeah. I'm curious, are you of a similar mindset when it comes to beefing up this front and investing multiple picks into that?
Absolutely. Because here's the thing, man. What you don't want to happen is you want to get a situation where, and we kind of talked about this on the Atlanta Football Party early on in the week, is the fact that you never want to get yourself into a situation where if one person gets hurt, you see a steep decline in play, up front. Like, I'm not saying that's what happened with Grady Jarrett. Obviously so. He's a really good player, so there's going to be some decline. But they, like you said, they were able to, pick up some things. And you had David Onyemata that was still there and kind of, Kentavious Street for a little while until he got hurt. So there were some guys that you found out about. LaCale London, he was a solid guy. He can be a rotational guy for you. You want to be able to beef that up even more. and you want to have some young guys who can potentially be starters for you. That's the next level, right? Because I love what Ryan Nielsen did with as far as having those guys rotating out. I love the fact of throwing waves at guys. That's your advantage, right? Because, they don't rotate out on offensive linemen. Those guys play the whole game. So when you have guys that are coming in, you're throwing those different waves of guys, there's not really that necessarily a big drop off because you have an older group, with David Onyemata and Grady Jarrett. Why not bring a guy in, Byron Murphy? I'm not saying get him at 8, but if he ends up being on the team, he'll be a young guy that has the potential to be probably better than those guys, or if not at the same level. You have him coming in, and you're throwing him at 75%, offensive guard, you know what I'm saying? Or 75% of that all-star tackle, or 75% of that average tackle, which is probably what you're going to be facing on, specifically in within a division. So I'm all for getting guys that can come in and contribute. And I also want to get guys that not only can contribute this year, but guys that can eventually come in and take over for some of these guys who are 30 plus, and that the Falcons are dependent on to play a lot of snaps.
Yeah. It's just, I think Grady's going to be 31 this year.
Yep.
I think David Onyemata is going to be like 32 this year. It's like,
Yep.
These are two key pieces.
At some point, there's going to be the decline.
Yes.
I mean, love those
right?
guys to death, but yeah.
Yeah. And Grady's coming off the ACL, and it's just like, it's like, I like where the D-line, the D-line has made, as I said, they've made progress. They're better than where they were, a year and a half ago or whatever. But it's like, let's keep that going, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where I'm at. So, I know the Falcons have a lot of needs. I'm not expecting them to invest that many resources into their front. Like they'll take the edge rusher and maybe one D lineman and they'll keep it moving, which is fine. Again, it's better than nothing, right?
Why we gotta see my whole thing, man? Look, here's the thing, man. Like, people are talking about getting weapons and not being able to turn down their opportunity to get a super weapon on offense. Like, they ain't got no weapons on the defensive side of the football. Like, y'all never heard of Chris Jones? You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. Like, this man was a difference maker. Like, as much as Patrick Mahomes, what he does for that team and how he put that team on his back, like, Chris Jones is I ain't gonna say he's equal, but he's damn close when it comes to whether or not affecting whether they win or lose games. Like, they lost that game against the Lions open up the season last year because of Chris Jones not being there. I feel, like, that's just my personal opinion. And I feel like if he would have been in that game, they probably would have won. So, like, Atlanta fans, just understand, like, you can have weapons on defense too. It's okay. I know you might not be able to see all and quantify what they're able to do, but man, I'm telling you, there are difference makers on the defensive side of football, and I would just appreciate if the Falcons were to get one. And it don't have to be in the first round. Like, you can be in the second and third, and you can try again within the same year.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm all for that, man. I'm all for that.
I definitely feel you on that, Jarvis. I'm torn because you
Here we go.
I love the weapons. I'm a big fan of the weapons, right? And part of me is just selfishly like, it doesn't really matter whether that player is good or not. I just want to see you freak out over the Falcons taking a wide receiver.
Why you want to do me like that, man? You want to see your blood pressure go up.
I'm more invested in the content here on the Locked On Falcons podcast than I am necessarily in what the Falcons do on the football field, right? So I'm just like, this is just great content, I feel sorry for our country. What is it, Darren Rovell? I feel sorry for our country, but this is great content. So that's kind of where I'm at, Jarvis. But let the people know, how what are your plans for reacting to some of these upcoming picks that will either cause your blood pressure to spike or you'll be cool, calm, and collected. Let everybody know, where you'll be at this weekend.
We will be live, like, as the Falcons are picking. I'm trying to figure out, the time frame as far as when we'll do it, but we'll definitely be live as the Falcons get ready to pick, and then of course we'll have some good old reaction afterwards, and we'll know where it goes, man. We'll see. And hopefully the Locked On Falcons insiders and the Locked On Falcons everydayers, come on over to Locked On Sports Atlanta, man, and check us out. Don't leave Aaron Freeman, what he got going on. Don't leave that. Hey, that's first things first. But like, you got a little time. Come check us out, man. We really appreciate it.
We're gonna say goodbye to Jarvis for today's episode and continue today's Locked On Falcons because there's been a lot of Michael Penix at 8 rumors recently, and I just gotta come in and pour cold water on that. It's
no, you're gonna say it to a flame. That's what you gotta do.
The Falcons ain't taking a quarterback in the first round. I can promise you that, and I'll explain why as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So in the NFL draft, you want to find quality professionals that are right, for the roles that you have on your football team. And the same is true when you're looking for quality professionals for your small business. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you because they have the tools to find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. And it's not just any job board. LinkedIn is going to help you hire professionals that you can't find elsewhere, right? Even those who aren't actively looking for a new job might be open to that perfect role. In any given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get qualified candidates within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So, guys, I want to wrap up today's episode talking about, recent rumors the last couple of days. ESPN has been pushing this pretty hard. Adam Schefter, Jeremy Fowler, among others, of the possibility of the Falcons taking a quarterback like Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington at 8. And it's not going to happen, nor is taking any quarterback at 8 or trading back into round 1. It's not going to happen, guys. I'm going to explain to you. And a lot of it, I think, stems from, I think the relationship that fans have with Kirk Cousins, right? That I think the lower your confidence in Kirk Cousins, the higher your, expectation that the Falcons are going to take a quarterback early, right? And that's what I've sort of gleaned from seeing this being a talking point. But I don't think people have learned the lessons from the whole Justin Fields experience and the Falcons not selecting Justin Fields, because I still see like a vocal contingent of Falcon fans in recent months that still have this sort of like revisionist history of like, if the Falcons had taken Justin Fields, he would have sat for a year behind Matt Ryan, and the world would be gumdrops and rainbows and unicorns and snowflakes and all that stuff. But that's not really how that situation would have gone down. It would have been immediately a quarterback controversy, and Justin Fields probably would have been the starting as early as week 7 after the Falcons bye week in that 2021 season, because clearly y'all don't remember how that 21 season played out. Because if Justin Fields was to pick at 4 instead of Kyle Pitts, right, like there's a high probability the Falcons start 2021 1-4 or 0-5, right? Because the 3 wins that they got in the first 6 games of the season, Kyle Pitts was instrumental in all 3 of those wins. He had the big catch that set up the game-winning field goal walk-off from Younghoe Koo against the Giants. He dominated the first half of the Jets game in London that allowed the Falcons to build up that 20-3 lead. And he also dominated the week 7, I think, matchup against the Dolphins, where he just eviscerated that secondary and was a big part of why the Falcons won that game. Without Kyle Pitts on that roster, like, there's a high probability that you're losing all 3 of those games, if not 2 out of those 3 games. And so I think I've seen a lot of people say, well, the Chiefs, traded up for Patrick Mahomes when they had Alex Smith, and the Ravens traded up for Lamar Jackson when they had Joe Flacco. Well, the key difference was Alex Smith and Joe Flacco didn't have guaranteed money on their contracts, right? And that's what I'm talking about with the Justin Fields thing, is like, when you had 2 years of guarantees with Matt Ryan, that's why the Falcons passed on Justin Fields, because you don't want to necessarily be in that situation, right? Because, like, say the Chiefs and the Ravens, right? They knew, regardless of how the 2017 with the Chiefs and the 2018 season with the Ravens played out, that Alex Smith and Joe Flacco were gone the next year. It didn't matter what happened, right? If they played well and retained their jobs over Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson respectively, they still would have been gone the next year, right? If they played poorly and got benched, in week 4, they still would have been gone. It wouldn't have mattered. The difference with the Falcons is, let's imagine a scenario where the Falcons do take a quarterback in round 1, and for whatever reason, Kirk Cousins gets hurt or plays poorly, and you call in the young guy, you call in Michael Penix or whoever, right? And he plays well enough to the point that it's like, okay, well, let's make him the starter. You still owe $65 million in guaranteed money to Kirk Cousins next year in 2025. He's a $65 million backup quarterback at that point in time, right? And so there's no reason for you as a football team to invite that type of chaos into your building, right? None whatsoever. I know a lot of people use, well, what about the Packers? They drafted Jordan Love, and he sat for 3 years. And like people use that as like an example to copy. And I'm just like, well, we need to wait and see a little bit more. Before we sit here and say, oh, the Packers template is one that you can copy, right? Because the Packers are going to pay Jordan Love, $50+ million this summer. And all of a sudden, like their flexibility, right? They basically had to make a $50 million or $200 million decision based off of like 18 games that Jordan Love played. Is that a good strategy that's worthwhile? Is that something that's going to work out in the long run? Maybe again, I'm not sitting here saying that, Jordan Love's going to suck or anything like that, but I just sit here and I go, let's pump the brakes because they may not be as envious a position as some people think they are right now, a year or two down the road once they have to start paying guys. So we'll see when it comes to these other examples of teams that stashed a quarterback for a couple of years. But the Falcons aren't going to do that because, again, they have $65 million in terms of the guaranteed money owed to Kirk Cousins in 2025 for why they are not going to take a quarterback in the first round. Right. And I understand where fans, this frustrates fans because let's talk about the hypothetical scenario. One of these top four quarterbacks falls to 8. You know what the Falcons are doing? They're not going to take that guy. They're going to trade out. Someone else is going to come up. Denver, Minnesota, Oakland, whoever. Las Vegas. Somebody else is going to trade up for one of those quarterbacks, and the Falcons are going to trade out. They're not going to take that quarterback. I can say that with 100% confidence for this exact reason, because Raheem Morris doesn't want to invite that controversy into his building. It's easy for fans to sit here and say, take the quarterback. It's the best situation. You get your long-term answer at quarterback. Who cares about the quarterback controversy? And who cares about the ramifications and the 65 million reasons, why, Kirk Cousins and all that stuff? Who cares? But that's easy for you to say as a fan because you're a fan, right? You're not an employee of the company, right? You're not a person that has to manage the egos in the locker room and all that stuff like Raheem Morris has to do. It's easy for you, right? And another way I would put it is it's easy for you to see, when you're a consumer of a product, it's different. Your relationship to that company that makes that product, a $1 billion corporation, which is all these football teams are. They're just $1 billion corporations, right? No different than Pepsi and Amazon and whatever. But if you drink Pepsi, your relationship with Pepsi is very different from the person who works for Pepsi. Amazon puts this, front and center. You using Amazon to buy products is your relationship with Amazon is very different than the people that work in the warehouse or drive the trucks for Amazon, right? When you're an employee, right? And that's the thing that I don't think fans understand. And that's one of the things I try to, tell people on this podcast is like, you have to see the world. You have to understand from their perspective, not your perspective. Your perspective is, I don't care who the quarterback is as long as we win games, right? But from their perspective, they're the people that actually have to manage this, and deal with this and not have to worry about people, knuckleheads like me for the next 3 months, sitting here asking them questions like, okay, so when is the young quarterback going to play, right? Oh, Kirk Cousins threw a pick in practice. It's time for Michael Penix. It's time for Drake May, right? Oh, we lost the game on Sunday. Is it time, even though we're 2-1, is it time to turn to the young guy, right? You don't want to invite that in your building. So I sit here with 100% confidence they are not taking quarterback in round 1. Maybe they take one in round 2. Maybe they take one in round 3. But more than likely, guys, your dreams of the Falcons drafting their heir apparent is probably going to be a 2025 issue, not a 2024 issue, because you want to go, at that point, you only have 1 year of Kirk Cousins guaranteed 2025 money, right? Then the guaranteed money goes away in 2026 or is reduced to like $10 million in 2026, right? And you also have an informed opinion. Like, how good is this team? Like, is this something that we need to be worried about? How good is Kirk Cousins in this offense? How good are the weapons around him? Like, you make an informed decision in 2025. You're not making that informed decision in 2024. And so, like, it's not going to happen, guys. I just want to make that clear. The Falcons are not going to take a quarterback in the first round. They might take there is a world where maybe they take a guy in the first round in 2025, right? But it ain't happening in 2024. I will sit here and tell you that. And I still don't think it's likely that they'll take a quarterback on day 2 of the draft. I think it's more than likely they'll wait till day 3 and take a flyer on the third string guy. And then, we'll see. But I just want to get that out there because we haven't really talked about it on the pod because since they signed Kirk Cousins, it was like, oh, they're out of the quarterback market. But it seems like some fans, are getting suckered into the whole, like all these recent Michael Penix rumors and thinking, oh, this is a possibility. It's not, right? Now, if they do, if I'm wrong, if in the 1 in a million chance that I'm wrong, right? I'm never wrong, but we're gonna have some great content because we're gonna spend the next 3 months on this podcast. As I said, like I feel sorry for my football team, but this is tremendous content, right? We're gonna have some great content over the next 3 months, talking about the quarterback controversy that will not go away at any point. So it'll be great for the podcast, but it's not gonna happen. So I just wanted to say that we'll be back later Thursday night with a live show at 7:30 p.m. Previewing the draft and sort of the latest rumors and tidbits. We'll also have a live show reacting to it around midnight, 11:30, whenever round one ends. But Locked On Sports Atlanta is going to have a sort of live reaction as well. So check out their YouTube channel during the pick. So, you'll have Locked On Falcons, Locked On Sports Atlanta, and then Locked On Falcons to pad out your Thursday night. So make sure you are subscribed to both. Unfortunately, you guys didn't get us to 10,000, before the draft. So we'll have to get to 10,000 before training camp or whatever other milestones we're pushing for. So make sure you hit subscribe so that you don't miss out on the tremendous content that is coming your way on Thursday night. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.